Something tells me this is my seat.
Yes.
I'm Frank Rose. I'm a visiting fellow at Columbia University School of the Arts and the awards director of the Digital Storytelling Lab there. I also am the author of several books, most recently The Art of Immersion and last year the SeaWe Swim In, both of which are about different aspects of storytelling essentially. Social scientists and cognitive scientists in particular, psychologists and so forth. For a long time they kind of denigrated the influence of stories. Stories, they were considered not worthy of study. Stories were considered kind of frivolous. They were entertainment, and yeah, maybe they could be fun, but they weren't worthy of serious study. And that began to change with Jerome Bruner, the psychologist who in 1986, I believe it was, published this book called Actual Minds, Possible Worlds, in which he made the case very strongly, and he was a very influential person in his field. He made the case that that there are two modes of thought, and logic and reasoning, that's one. Stories are another, and they're very different but equally important.
We grabbed a little quote off your website, and I think you read, "Every organization is a media company today." What do you mean by that?
Well, there used to be a lot of distinctions, a lot of classifications, and part of it involved just the audience. You were considered either part of a passive audience, or you were in some way or another a storyteller. You were a film director or a journalist or a novelist or whatever. And now I think largely because of the influence of digital, there's a realization that those distinctions are false. We're all storytellers. We're none of us passive. Just the mere aspect of understanding stories, of processing stories in the brain is an active process. So we effectively co-create, in partnership with, whoever the author or the filmmaker or whoever that is. I think there's been a realization in the past 40 years or so that stories are more and more important. I think that we've long had this fiction that we're rational creatures. Everybody is, economically speaking, a rational actor, which is patently not the truth. To sort of admit that we are emotional as well as probably more than we are logical. I think logic is kind of an aspirational goal for us, but stories are where we live. And to therefore understand how we work, how we think, and ultimately where we're going, we need to understand stories and the role that they play.
Do you see social media as an enabler?
I feel like social media has gotten off, some of it has gotten off to a wrong start, but that has less to do with the, just the fact of social media than it does with algorithmic herding, so to speak, that YouTube and Facebook in particular do. But the fact that we can all tell stories on social media, I think that's great. We tell stories all the time to ourselves, to our friends, just in the course of life. But the fact that we all have kind of a broadcasting platform, not a broadcasting platform, an interactive, platform like Twitter, say, is great. It's really freeing.
As we are all students that produce stories in the end, I was wondering whether or not you might have some tips on how to use, or maybe some advice on how to use that power of storytelling also responsibly.
Right. So the way to do that, I think, the way to do it responsibly is to tell stories that are true, tell stories that matter to people, tell stories that inspire people. And that's wonderful, and you see a great deal of that. You also see a lot of kind of very manipulative storytelling, and that's kind of what I'm focused on trying to figure out how to prevent or how to discourage, and that's a harder question.